You're watching our continuing coverage here on CNBC TV 18 as we get you insights of the budget-making process with the budget team from North Block. Joining us now is the Financial Services Secretary, Ms. Anjali Chib, and also with us the Disinvestment Secretary, Mr. Neeraj Gupta. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Ma'am, let me start by asking you, because the big hope in the market was that the bank recap outlay would be much higher than 25,000 crores. The expectation was 30 to 35,000 crores. The Finance Minister has articulated and caveated several times over that we will give additional funds as and when the need arises. It also hinges, I'm told, by the Minister of State for Finance on the government's plan as far as consolidation of PSBs is concerned. This is not the first time we've tried to go down that road on consolidation of public sector banks, again fought with many, many challenges. So what can be the realistic expectation now as far as an additional outlay for recap is concerned?
I think that question's been answered, and I agree with you. It's out there in the public domain. It's as required. One. B, about consolidation, you said what's different this time is the banking space, which is different. We do have licenses out for 21 payment and small finance banks. We have 2 new universal banks. We have a commitment from RBI for licenses on tap. If the banking space is going to change so much, there is going to be a certain amount of a shakedown and realignment within that space. So that is what is different this time.
So how soon do we move towards this process of consolidation? I know the Banks Bureau has only recently been set up. In fact, it's barely a day and a half old. Mr. Daya is going to be chairing that. But what can we expect now in terms of the next milestone in this journey?
I think it would be precipitate on my part to set a to the second question, I think you would need to ask Secretary Department of Economic Affairs. But in the first part of your question, there is a vertical in NIIF where viable projects which have run into some difficulty are to be taken up. Could be takeout finance, it could be some other way of handling those stressed assets. And I think that is a developing space right now. It's just that there is a commitment to such a vertical.
Okay, let me also ask you about one of the suggestions that was made as part of the 4R prescription that the Economic Survey has laid out to try and address the twin balance sheet problem facing corporate houses as well as public sector banks. And there the recommendation or the suggestion is that the government could actually use the equity that it holds in the Reserve Bank of India to try and find ways of recapitalizing banks. How much has actually been discussed by way of informal conversation at all as far as this particular idea is concerned in government?
I think the Economic Survey discusses a number of possibilities, and this is certainly one of them. I think it requires further discussion.
So has some discussion taken place already?
It requires further discussion.
It requires further discussion. Let me then ask you, as far as the banking sector itself is concerned at this point in time, I understand that the stressed assets are to the tune of about 8 lakh crore rupees. That was the number given to me by the Minister of State for Finance, at least. Can you take us through how much pain you expect before things actually start to get better for the banking sector?
The asset quality review exercise is in progress. It's underway. The Reserve Bank of India has made an assessment that it is something that is going to go on until March 2017. Let me share with you that the public sector banks are working very hard to resolve stressed assets. So let's take a look at how quickly we can improve our balance sheets on this.
But you believe that the stress is likely to continue at least for a few quarters before we start to see improvement?
It takes a certain amount of time to resolve stressed assets, and even with the recent announcements that the Reserve Bank has made about the SDR regime, I think the banks are going to need a certain amount of time to come out of this particular situation.
Before I toss it to the Disinvestment Secretary, a quick word on what we can expect specifically for the steel sector, because this is where the banks actually have a significant exposure. In fact, the most pain is being felt on account of the steel sector. We've seen the government move on rejigging duties and bringing in some protectionist moves as far as duties are concerned. But what can we expect realistically by way of further measures now to address this sector?
There are a number of stakeholders involved in that particular exercise. There's the Ministry of Commerce, there's the Ministry of Steel, there's the Department of Economic Affairs, there's the Department of Revenue as well. I think this is any further steps will need to be consulted, will need a prior consultation among these stakeholders.
Okay, let me now get in Mr. Gupta as well, the Disinvestment Secretary. Sir, the previous target was almost 70,000 crores. It's finally been scaled down to about 25,000 crores in FY16. You now perhaps have a little more realistic target of 56,000 crores. You know, Mr. Bhattal just sort of told me, he said, every time I come here and you ask me whether you'll meet your targets or not, I come back and smile because I always do. The Disinvestment Secretary so far haven't had much luck on that front, so I'm hoping that you'll break that jinx. But really, as far as disinvestment is concerned, 20,000 for strategic sales and the rest, balance 36,000, is what you're going to have to push significantly. You believe that this is a realistic target?
Well, first of all, strategic sale. The intent of the government was very clear from the last budget speech itself. And now the whole mechanism and process of a strategic sale is also in the public domain. We have issued all the operative instructions today. That simply reaffirms the government's commitment to take the process forward. And now whole of the process is on. So I'm sure that will happen, and then you will see some success stories which will be definitely taking into consideration the target which is given there. Now coming to minority stake sale. See, we are interacting in the environment. I agree that market had been volatile, there had been problems, but we had been having two OFSs recently, and they both have been well received. The space which is available to me is big enough to attempt this target. For example, only 44 of the 235 CPSEs are listed CPSEs, and they are commanding a market cap of almost 12%. Not only that, in top 200 companies, 21 are CPSEs. So we have ample space available. If I go in terms of market capitalization figures, against which I have to operate the disinvestment process. So the targets are fixed. They should never look very easy. But the department will be having best effort to reach these targets.
Okay. Let me also then ask you, as far as the strategic disinvestment plan is concerned, because the Niti Aayog is now going to identify the CPSEs and then discuss the quantum and so on and so forth. Has any work been done already as far as drawing up a possible list of contenders is concerned?
See, there have been two disinvestment commissions earlier. Their reports are in public domain. There had been various other commissions and committees which have recommended on this topic. Department of Investment and Public Asset Management will definitely be assisting Niti Aayog in whole of the exercise, and we will be bringing before them all the possible recommendations which are there in the public domain and which can be considered before making an opinion. So I am sure there is a lot of work already in place, and Niti Aayog has to really come out with clarity and very prudent advice for us.
Okay, so I had Dr. Panagaria here a short while ago, and he was talking about how they hope to start work on this very, very soon. But are you likely to change your strategy as far as even attempting the OFS route is concerned? Because the problem that we've seen is that the ministry seems to bunch everything up towards the end of the year when there is really no appetite as far as foreign investors specifically are concerned, and you're then bunching issue after issue, which doesn't really work very well from a market point of view. Are we likely to see a change in your disinvestment strategy?
Well, there are SEBI guidelines, there are rules, regulations for handling what type of disinvestment processes we can run. And I am sure we are open to all the processes, first of all. OFS is the shortest and easiest process to run. But nonetheless, we are open to any possible method of making disinvestment in a better manner. So there is no restriction from the side of the government. The initiative has to be taken keeping in mind the environment in which we have to operate.
The Finance Minister spoke of the listing of the general insurance companies. Any broad timeline where we could actually see work being started on that eventual listing?
I think, ma'am will
I think we have to work together on
You
that.
have to work together.
All right.
So clearly preparatory work hasn't begun on that front.
The job has been given to us and we will definitely try to deliver on it.
But any other candidates that likely listings from the CPSE universe?
You know the basic policy prescription that most of the CPSEs should be listed. And for public listing, 25% should be divested. So we are definitely working on a lot of CPSEs which are not listed. Only 44 are listed, I told you, out of 235. So many of them will be listed gradually.
Ma'am, let me ask you now, you're going to have the Gyan Sangam meet in the first week of March, in fact in just the next couple of days from now. What is going to be the big area of priority that you would like to focus on at this point in time, given the state of the banking sector? What are going to be those actionables that you would like to sort of move on at the end of this?
There are actually 5 broad themes that we are working on. As you know, the Gyan Sangam is really a retreat for bankers. It's a that concern them right now, and some of the more obvious concerns you already talked about. So I guess we will be talking about those. We will be talking about a number of other strengthening measures, comparing notes, and doing a very, very frank and free discussion on a large number of very, very relevant areas. Let's see where the discussion goes, because our takeaways are really going to emerge out of those discussions.
Are you expecting a rate cut now from the Reserve Bank?
One lives in hope.
One lives in hope. Mr. Gupta, let me finally end by asking you, what is going to be really your priority now? You've got a fresh calendar in that sense. How soon do we actually get you to move on all of that? You've already got a cleared, approved pipeline with you. So how soon do we now expect the next OFS perhaps?
Well, I have to wait for the right time to do that exercise. This question has been asked to me many times, and I come back to the same. But next important thing which I have to look into is the name has been changed, and it really underlines the change in the focus of the government on investment in CPSEs. So all the policy prescriptions which are really leading to market capitalization or some sort of management of investment in CPSEs, we have to really make them a little more synergic so that ultimately they work together with convergence.
Okay. Before I let you go, a quick question. I understand that even as far as the hotels are concerned, 4 RFPs have already been issued. Will the hotel stake sale account for the 20,000 or a significant portion of the 20,000 crore rupee strategic stake sale plan?
Let me explain that they are all ITDC joint venture subsidiaries. So if ITDC is disinvesting in the subsidiaries or in the joint ventures, it is in the domain of Tourism Ministry. But nonetheless, Department of Investment and Public Asset Management will continue to support them in their endeavor.
I mean, who does it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, the money will come in under the strategic sale basket, right?
How does it make a difference where it goes? It goes to the government.
It's like the consolidated fund of India.
Right.
Sucks everything up. Well, Ms. Chib and Mr. Gupta, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Well, more share from insights from the budget team on the strategic rationale behind certain decisions that have been taken. We're going to take a quick break. On the note of petrol prices being cut by about 3 rupees, but diesel prices have been hiked by ₹1.47 a litre. So there's good news for petrol buyers, but bad news for diesel prices, because diesel prices have gone up by about ₹1.50. A quick break, and then we'll be right back.